Hello students, we will talk about antihypertensive drugs. Let us see the etiology of hypertension. There are two types. One is essential or primary hypertension where no specific cause is said to have essential hypertension, and the patients with a specific etiology are said to have secondary hypertension. So we have the genetic factors, psychological stress, and environmental as well as dietary factors contribute to the development of hypertension. Now, this table summarizes the classification of hypertension on the basis of blood pressure. So you can see 120 by 80 of Hg systolic and diastolic is normal category, while 120 to 135 and 80 to 89 is prehypertensive stage. The blood pressure more than or equal to 140 by 90 is hypertension, and this high level goes to 140 up to 159 or 90 to 99 is stage 1 hypertension, and more than or equal to 160 by 100 is a stage 2 hypertension. Now, normal regulation of blood pressure, if we see, the equation is cardiac output into PVR, that is peripheral vascular resistance. So the arterial blood pressure is directly proportional to the product of the blood flow and the resistance to the flow of blood through precapillary arterioles. Now, this moment to moment regulation of cardiac output and the peripheral vascular resistance exerted at three anatomic sites: arterioles, postcapillary venules, that is capacitance vessels in heart. Second one is kidney. Then we have baroreflexes, which are mediated by autonomic nerves. That is the combination with humoral mechanism, including renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. And there is also local release of vasoactive substances. Let us talk about the classification of the antihypertensive drugs. First one is diuretics, that is thiazide diuretics. Example: hydrochlorothiazide, indapamide, chlorthalidone. High ceiling diuretics, we have furosemide, ithacranic acid. Potassium sparing diuretics like spironolactone, amloride. Then we have ACE inhibitors like captopril, enalapril, lisinopril, ramipril, etc. We have angiotensin receptor blockers, AT1 blockers, losartan, candesartan, telmisartan, valsartan. Then there is direct renin inhibitor like caliscreen. We have beta adrenergic blockers like propranolol, metoprolol, atenolol. Then there are calcium channel blockers like verapamil, diltiazem, nifedipine, felodipine, amlodipine. We also have beta plus alpha adrenergic blockers like labetalol, carvedilol. Then only alpha 2 adrenergic blockers: prazosin, terazosin, phentolamine, phenoxybenzamine. Then there is one more category, there is central sympatholytics like clonidine, methyl-dopa. Then there are vasodilators. We have arteriolar, that is hydralazine, minoxidil, diazoxide, and we have arteriolar plus venous vasodilator, that is sodium nitroprusside. And others, we have adrenergic neuron blockers like rezapine, guanethidine, or ganglionic blockers like pentolinium. So let us discuss first about the diuretics. As you can see, thiazide diuretics cause sodium water retention, so that decreases blood volume, decreases cardiac output, and decreases peripheral vascular resistance, hence decrease the blood pressure. So the drugs in thiazide diuretics, we have hydrochlorothiazide. So initially they act by increasing sodium and water excretion. Now, thiazide diuretics can induce hypokalemia and hyperuricemia to a lesser extent. We have also the loop diuretics. So they are the inhibitors of endoepithelial sodium transport at the late distal and collecting duct, like furosemide. And we have the drugs antagonizing aldosterone receptor that reduce the potassium loss in urine. Aldosterone antagonists have additional benefit of cardiac remodeling that occurs in heart failure. Loop diuretics promptly act by blocking sodium and chloride reabsorption in the kidneys, even in the patient who have poor renal function. They decrease renal peripheral resistance and increase renal blood flow. Then we have potassium sparing diuretics like spironolactone. They are the competitive antagonists that will either compete with aldosterone or directly block the epithelial sodium channel. So the example of directly blocking the sodium channel is amloride. Now, the next category is ACE inhibitors, angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors. Now, the normal mechanism is whenever you have sodium chloride loss, there is a fall in blood pressure, fall in BP. Okay, so that leads to low macula densa, sodium chloride, low glomerular afferent pressure, enhanced sympathetic activity. So all this will lead to release of renin by the juxtaglomerular cells of the kidneys. Now this will catalyze the conversion of angiotensin node gen to angiotensin 1. Then this angiotensin 1 is converted into angiotensin 2, and then angiotensin 2 into 3, and then 4. Angiotensin 2 is a potent vasoconstrictor that also causes sodium and water retention and causes aldosterone secretion from the adrenal cortex. All these things, three things, will cause rise in the blood pressure. So this is what is happening normally, or the normal mechanism of blood pressure regulation, where renin, angiotensin, aldosterone are involved. Now the drugs will be acting. So there are drugs which will be acting at the first site, as you can see, renin inhibitors like aliskiren. Then we have ACE inhibitors. The second step will be inhibited, that is conversion of angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2 will be inhibited by them, like captopril and enalapril. And we have AT1 blockers like losartan, sartans, you can remember, angiotensin blockers, AT1 receptor blockers. So they will be blocking the conversion of angiotensin 2 into angiotensin 3. So ACE inhibitor is recommended as first-line treatment of hypertension in the patient with a variety of indications, including high coronary risk, or history of diabetes, stroke, heart failure, myocardial infarction, or the chronic kidney disease. ACE inhibitors are also responsible for the breakdown of bradykinin, which is a peptide which will increase the production of nitric oxide and O. Both nitric oxide and prostacyclin are the potent vasodilators. So the ACE inhibitors will decrease angiotensin 2 levels, they will increase bradykinin levels. By reducing the circulating angiotensin 2 levels, they will also decrease the secretion of aldosterone. So that will help into decrease sodium water retention. ACE inhibitors reduce both cardiac preload and afterload and decrease the cardiac work. The adverse effects, cough is the main adverse effect of this captopril and enalapril ACE inhibitors, and also there is hyperkalemia, rashes, urticaria, angioedema. The advantages: they are free of post hypotension, electrolyte disturbances, and long-term therapy has the potential to reduce the incidence of type 2 diabetes in the high-risk subjects. There is no rebound hypertension on withdrawal. So the uses of ACE inhibitors: we have hypertension. They are the first line of drugs in all grades of hypertension, but the ACE inhibitor, angiotensin receptor blockers, they have now surpassed them in popularity. Essential hypertension respond to monotherapy with ACE inhibitor, and majority of the rest to their combination with diuretics and beta blockers. So we have the uses in the congestive heart failure. ACE inhibitors cause arteriolar and venodilatation in cardiac congestive heart failure patients, reduce preload as well as afterload. Myocardial infarction: the long-term ACE inhibitor therapy reduces recurrent myocardial infarction. And prophylaxis in high cardiovascular risk patients. These drugs are protective in the patients with high cardiovascular risk, even when there is no associated hypertension. Diabetic nephropathy: prolonged ACE inhibitor therapy has been found to prevent or delay the end-stage renal disease in type 1 as well as type 2 diabetes. Non-diabetic nephropathy, that is, ACE inhibitors reduce the proteinuria by decreasing pressure gradient across the glomerular capillaries as well as by altering the membrane permeability. Scleroderma crisis. The marked rise in blood pressure and deterioration of the renal function in the scleroderma is mediated by angiotensin II. Angiotensin antagonists. So we have losartan, candesartan, telmisartan, valsartan. The effect is similar to that of ACE inhibitors. The ARBs produce arteriolar and venous dilation and block the aldosterone secretion, thus they lower the blood pressure and decrease salt and water retention, but they do not increase the bradykinin levels. They can be used as first line drugs for the treatment of hypertension, especially in the patient with a compelling indication of diabetes, heart failure, or chronic kidney disease. The next category is direct renin inhibitor. We have aliskiren. It lowers the blood pressure as effectively as ARBs, ACE inhibitors, and thiazide, but should not be routinely combined with an ACE inhibitor. Aliskiren should not be combined with ACE inhibitor. It can cause diarrhea at higher dosage. It can also cause cough, angioedema. This is contraindicated during pregnancy. The next class is beta blockers. So they are the mild antihypertensives and they do not significantly lower the blood pressure normotensives. The first drug is propranolol. So this was the first beta blocker shown to be effective in ischemic heart disease. It has now been replaced by more selective drugs, beta blockers, which are selected towards beta 1 in like metoprolol and atenolol. So all the beta blockers are useful in reducing the blood pressure in mild to moderate hypertension, and in severe hypertension they are especially useful in preventing the reflex tachycardia that often result from treatment with direct vasodilators. So we have metoprolol and atenolol, which are cardioselective, most widely used beta blockers. This it inhibits the stimulation of beta 1 adrenoreceptors. Atenolol is reported to be less effective than metoprolol in preventing the complications of hypertension. Other beta blockers, we have nadolol and cartiolol, which are non-selective beta receptor antagonists. Betoxolol, bisoprolol are beta 1 selective blockers. We also have pindolol, acebutolol, penbutolol. They are the partial agonists. That means beta blocker with some intrinsic sympathomimetic activity. These are particularly useful for patients with bradyarrhythmias or peripheral vascular disease. Esmolol is a beta 1 selective blocker which is rapidly metabolized by hydrolysis by red blood cell esterases. Esmolol is used for the management of intraoperative and postoperative hypertension, sometimes for hypertensive emergencies, particularly when hypertension is associated with tachycardia. Then the next category is alpha adrenergic blockers. We have prazosin, terazosin, doxazosin. Now these are alpha 1 blocking agent. Prazosin is alpha 1 blocking agent. They reduce arterial blood pressure by dilating the resistance and capacitance vessels. Other alpha adrenoreceptor blockers like phentolamine and phenoxybenzamine are useful in the diagnosis and treatment of pheochromocytoma. The next class is centrally acting adrenergic drugs. We have clonidine and methyl-dopa. Clonidine acts centrally as alpha 2 agonist to produce inhibition of the sympathetic vasomotor centers, decrease the sympathetic outflow to the periphery, and this leads to reduced total peripheral resistance and decreased blood pressure. Methyl-dopa is again alpha 2 agonist, which is converted to methyl norepinephrine and mainly used for the management of hypertension in pregnancy, where it has a record. Vasodilators, we have hydralazine and minoxidil. They are not used as a primary drugs to treat hypertension, but they act by producing relaxation of the vascular smooth muscles, primarily in arteries and arterioles, and thus results in decreased peripheral resistance. Hydralazine is accepted medication for controlling blood pressure in pregnancy during hypertension, and this is used topically to treat male pattern baldness. Now, the treatment of hypertension, we have hypertensive emergencies, which is rare but a life-threatening condition where the systolic is greater than 180 or diastolic is more than 120 mm of Hg, with evidence of impending organ damage like stroke, myocardial infarction. So, a variety of medications are used, including calcium channel blockers, nifedipine, nicardipine, and nitric oxide vasodilators like nitroprusside, nitroglycerin, adrenergic receptor antagonists like phentolamine, esmolol, labetalol, and vasodilators, hydralazine, and dopamine agonist, phenoldopam. The treatment of hypertension. So, resistant hypertension is defined as blood pressure that remains elevated despite the administration of the 3-drug regimen that includes a diuretic. So, the most common causes of resistant hypertension is poor compliance or excessive ethanol intake, or the concomitant conditions like diabetes, obesity, high salt intake, etc., and concomitant medications like sympathomimetics or NSAIDs, or insufficient dose of. This is the table which will give the combinations to be avoided. So we should not give alpha or beta blocker with the clonidine, because the possible effects are antagonism of clonidine action has been observed. Secondly, hydralazine with a prazosin, because it will cause hemodynamic reaction. Then also a verapamil or diltiazem with beta blocker should not be given, because there can be AV block or bradycardia. Methyl dopa with the clonidine or any 2 drugs of the same class should be avoided. And then we have the antihypertensives and pregnancy. The drugs which are found safer are hydralazine, methyl dopa, and cardioselective beta blockers can be used like atenolol, metoprolol, if there is no other choice. And finally, we have the complications of hypertension. As you can see, brain stroke, vision loss, heart attack, bone loss, kidney failure, and the blood vessel damage. Thank you. Please find the notes in the description which I have given as a link, so you can download from the description.